Hello and welcome to Console Shock, episode 28, Retro and Modern Gaming Chat, with me, Trev, and normally Stu, but he's running a bit late at the moment, so we've actually just jumped in and started without him. That doesn't mean it's just going to be me talking on my own, which will probably be a really boring, terrible podcast, but just so happens that today's episode, we welcome back Oliver Harper. How's it going, Ollie?
Good evening, sir. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing good.
Good to have you back again. How's it going?
Well, yeah, I've been a bit busy, but a bit tired. But I'm awake and functioning this evening. So
Barely.
Yeah. So next week I'm having a break, but this week it's just finishing up videos.
Just saying, you don't want to mention that too much on YouTube, do you? Because you're going to get an Angry Joe level of backlash there. So.
Best thing to do, really, I think, for all YouTubers is not to announce any schedules.
yeah, I think that was where he bit himself in the arse a little bit, wasn't it, with coming up with that in the first place. It's like, well, we'll do one every week, or was it Tuesday I'm going to have a review, and then he just kind of fell off the wayside within a matter of minutes, I think, of him finishing a record of that. But, you know, I'm sure he's got enough subscribers to survive, I think, so.
I'm sure he has, yeah.
You'll be knocking out those Fix It in Post episodes like nobody's business lately. I'm not surprised you're tired.
Yeah, it was because I missed out because Richard went away for like maybe 4 or 5 days for this like music festival, and that's when War for the Planet of the Apes came out. I was like, okay, well we'll shoot 2 the next week, and I thought, well, we could just put both reviews into one video, but I found that most people kind of watch Fix It in Post when there's just one film being covered instead of like 2. So I thought, well, we'll just separate them and just pretend it was like shot separately, even though we're wearing the same clothes.
Like Superman 1 and 2.
yeah, shot back to back. There we go. Yeah, save money.
The Richard Donner technique we adopted for this.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you know what? To be honest, I often see your Fix It in Post show. There's often you normally have 2 or 3 movies included. I often don't end up just watching one, and if it's one of those movies, then the other one I tend to skip over. But
I just tend to. It's best to just do just one film per episode, just to avoid any like people going, "Oh, I don't want to see this," or "I'm going to skip halfway through." So, makes more sense.
I did really enjoy your Transformers retrospective. I think we've talked about it before when you've been on, that it's kind of the first film has now kind of been lumped in with the subsequent 4 terrible films, and that is now also terrible, even though it was actually good. So,
well, yeah. As I say, I openly admit I enjoyed it. It's got its problems, you know, and the sequels are pretty bad. I think I did say I found the third one kind of tolerable, but half of it, and the 5th one wasn't awful, but it was they all have the problem of, you know, just too long, inappropriate humor, and just kind of a really odd tone to them, and being really
if it wants to be serious or just a jokey kind of American Pie bits of awful jokes. And then military, the world's about to end. We must go and get the doofer that's going to blow everything up and get it. And it was just, it's so...
Well, it's Michael Bay should have really made G.I. Joe and not Transformers, because he's far more obsessed.
Exactly, yeah.
He's far more obsessed with the military than the actual Transformers. So
that's a Michael Bay wet dream, that franchise, G.I. Joe.
Yeah, he should have done it. He should have done it, you know.
Well, I like the 2 G.I. Joe films. I actually think they're actually better than the subsequent Transformers films. But there is they do exist in the same Hasbro universe, which you may be aware of.
Well, yeah, I did a little bit of reading. Like the military guys in the first Transformers film they were hinting that they could be part of G.I. Joe, you know.
Exactly, yeah. I got that.
But it's not at all made clear that they are. It's I saw a little bit of G.I. Joe when I was a projectionist. I thought it looked pants, and I saw the second one maybe on Channel 4 or Film 4 like 6 months ago. It was near the end of the movie. I was like, I tried to give it a go, but it was
they're very cheesy. The source material is difficult to make into anything kind of serious. So I don't think they really try. But as a G.I. Joe fan, which I am, there's not many British people that are G.I. Joe fans.
It'll be Action Force, though.
It was Action Force here.
Yeah.
Oh, they did change it to GI Joe here at one stage.
Well, I had the Street Fighter 2 figures that were GI
Yeah,
Joe produced, and they were called Street Fighter 2. Like you had GI Joe kind of logo on it. I swear to God,
That's right.
It wasn't. So it wasn't Action Force. So they must have kind of that point just changed it and not said anything. You know.
No, that same sort of 4-inch, 5-inch form factor with those sort of ball jointy.
That's right. Yeah. They didn't look anything like the
like
video
missile
game,
launchers.
really.
Ken with missile launcher.
They look like swords and daggers. They don't need them, you know. I mean, some of them were okay. The M Bison figure and E Honda figure looked quite cool. Dowson looked alright. I mean, some of the Ryu and Ken looked more like their bodies were from like another GI Joe Ninja or something. They just replaced the head.
That's probably what they did. I think
they did. Yeah.
Chun-Li with rocket with bazooka and stuff like that.
Because Vega had the claws as well. I think even Chun-Li came with the claws as well. You can put on her hands. Yeah, but
it's bizarre.
It's a bit sad.
Yeah,
I had all of them. And like one vehicle where you could get the Champion Edition version of Guile, so he's orange instead of
Champion. Yeah, of course.
Green outfit. Now that's sad.
I remember I got a Street Fighter 2 sticker album by Merlin, who are the giants of the sticker industry in the early 90s. They had like WWF and
they did everything, mate. They did also Panini. Was it Panini?
Panini were getting destroyed by them in those days.
Because I had the Panini Masters of the Universe movie sticker album, but I had I had Street Fighter 1, which I did complete. 6 years after they'd 6 years after they'd published it. You literally just write them a letter, like, and they said, check with all what you're missing. They send it all to you. Couldn't believe it.
When you got to the last 50, wasn't it? You could note down the ones that you're waiting for or something. Yeah,
it was mad, mate. Mad.
I remember the artwork was like drawn. I think it was like the same dude that did like Crash and Zaps 64.
What was it? Is it Oliver Frey?
Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah. His Street Fighter drawings were a bit crap.
They were, yeah.
Sorry, Oliver. But yeah, his Crash stuff was amazing, and like I think he also did what I believe he also did in Superman the movie, the comic book at the beginning with the kids reading.
Oliver Frey drew that,
and it comes to life. So I think he did that.
I guess because it was mostly UK filmed.
Just got him to do like a Action Comics design in like 2 or 3 pages before it kind of transitions into live action and then into the opening titles.
God, video game magazine art was good. I think he did. Did he do computer and video games? I think he might have done.
Might have done. Yeah, I think he's even done. Has he done a few pieces for Retro Gamer? I'm sure
yes, I think he has.
Yeah.
It's funny with Retro Gamer though, but there's now people that. I mean, you said that you collect that. People collect a magazine about collecting other old stuff.
So stupid. It's like collecting free ads or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like it's been running longer now than a lot of the big magazines back, that we all remember.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it shows it does have a dedicated fan base, so it keeps the money coming in, I suppose, isn't it? And also, I think a lot of people import it, don't they? So export it, and whatever.
So I see a lot of Americans sort of like. I remember watching an episode of The Game Chasers. Don't know if you watch those guys.
Yeah, I watch them now and again. Yeah, they're pretty fun.
Yeah. Billy, he had a big pile of Retro Gamer.
Yeah. I think for a lot of them, it's quite expensive, though, isn't it? I think to subscribe and it's the shipping costs. But I think maybe the publishers do a decent deal. I think
they must get a huge fan base in America there. But these Americans must read most issues and think, I wish they'd stop talking about this bloody ZX Spectrum thing that they keep like. Where's the 10-page NES dedicated?
I know. Well, that's the funny thing. Because the Americans have different perspectives, don't they? Because their childhoods was NES, while ours was like the Commodore Spectrum and Amiga.
Well, it's just 80s equals NES. Basically.
Yeah. It's like we weren't so narrow-minded. We had so many more options,
Yeah. Well, it's just the fact that they were just ridiculously cheaper, like £3 for a Hit Squad re-release of Total Recall, or you could buy the NES version for £50.
Yeah, I don't know how these kids in America afforded it. You know what I mean? Like $60 dollars for like a video game. Over here, it was they just swapped the dollar for a pound sign, and so it was just like still 60 quid.
It didn't do us any favours at all to try and make people buy it. I mean, the Master System we got was about 15 quid cheaper a game.
Yeah,
contributed to it being better and selling more. But yeah, it's this. The thing is, like, Ashton's did a really good sort of rant about this on his NES Classic Mini review. He said, like, all the sort of 12-year-old, or teenage, British kids are watching all of these American YouTubers thinking that all we played in the 80s was the NES, which is so far from the truth. It's unbelievable.
Yes, oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the first computer or home system I ever played was an NES. In I think it was the Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt package, and that's what got me addicted to video games. And with very short space of time, I had a Commodore, and then I sort of realised that there was video games you could play at home, and then it was the Mega Drive and stuff. So the NES kind of started that obsession, but it wasn't something that fueled it over the coming years. Yeah, other machines. It's only a few select friends had an NES because the games were so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny now. You've mentioned that you actually had a NES when you were a kid. So did I. So we're both nostalgic about the NES because we did grow up with it.
I didn't have an NES. My friend down the road had. So my first. Well, I didn't own it. My first console was a Mega Drive, but before that, it was the Commodore 64 with the Terminator 2.
The one that says, "I love the box because it's got awesome artwork." Then at the bottom, it's got Terminator 2. I've returned. Because that's the quote, isn't it?
I had the box like a year ago. We found it in the attic, but obviously no computer. But I was like, I should have really sold that box because somebody would want that. But I think I binned it.
It was great artwork. I mean,
it's amazing artwork. I blew my mind when I got it. But it was like all my friends had consoles, and I had a Commodore 64, which at that point was kind of going out of fashion.
Yeah. It had a little flurry in the sort of early 90s of sort of 92, 93. Mayhem and Monsterland.
It had a little bit of energy left in it. Like I remember buying Last Ninja 3 brand new and stuff, like mail order. You have to write them a check or get your parents to write a check. $6.99 or whatever it was.
Yeah. There's one game actually I'm always on the lookout for the Commodore 64. Alien 3.
Alien 3?
Very, very.
Commodore?
Came out,
was it a port of? Was it a port of the NES
Mega Drive version? Yeah, well,
really?
The Mega Drive version is, for the most part, the base version for every other version, apart from the SNES, which is its weird own unique version. Still good, but it's its own version. I really like the Mega Drive version. But yeah, so there's a NES version, a Master System, Game Gear. The Game Boy one's also different.
I'm just googling what the Alien 3 and the Commodore look like. It looks really good, doesn't it?
Yeah. If you play it, it's very similar to the Mega Drive. It's the same game where you've got to like rescue the prisoners that are sort of splurted up against the walls, and then you've got a time limit. It's all of that. All the weapons are in there.
It's amazing.
It looks great. You should fire up an emulator and give it a go.
Definitely, it does look good.
I think it was produced in extremely small sort of print run. It's the same sort of box art as the Amiga version of Alien 3, which is also just the Mega Drive version. But they did these smaller sort of, not the big old boxes. It was the smaller. Yeah. I had a smaller one of Street Fighter 2 for the Commodore. Yeah. It was that was an awful game. It was. Yeah, I mean the multi-load on it was absolutely infuriating, wasn't it? It was the only way you could really do it. But yeah, and I actually picked up Turtles: The Coin-Op. I had that as well, the Commodore. Yeah, the only good Turtles game on the Commodore. Only two, but the other one's that terrible NES port of the NES game. Yeah, that was dreadful. It was absolutely crap. But everyone went mental for it. I mean, there's about 1 billion of those on eBay on every format. It's one of the most easiest games to pick up, but it's crap. The Coin-Op game though, that's a lot rarer. But yeah, far better. And the Commodore 64 version is actually quite good. That came in a big box. That wasn't a small box for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, I think it may have come with a poster. Actually, that's probably why. Yeah, you got a little poster with it. Yeah. It's based. The NES version is better though. Though that was called the arcade game here. I don't know if Konami were worried. Oh, will those Brits know what an arcade machine is? But yeah. Anyway, God, that was a lovely little warm up there. Oh, I did have another warm up I was planning, actually. You know what? Let's just do it. So, what do you think of Go 8-Bit, the Dave sort of quiz show, video game thing quiz show, Dara O'Brien? Is it O'Brien? O'Brien?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've seen maybe half an episode of that.
Right, okay.
I don't think it's good.
No?
I think it's pretty
What are your
rubbish.
thoughts?
Well, it's hardly retro stuff for a start. I mean, it's called Go 8-Bit, but
Yeah, that's right.
it's mostly modern games, and it
512
takes ever to get going, really, playing the games. So it's like being a kid, and you're waiting for some, like, Games Master, that, you know, waiting for, if you want to watch it, just for watch the kids to play games, and you've got a little bit of wait to see that happen. But they fill it up with this kind of comedy kind of banter, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's not really what I'd kind of expected it to be. I thought it'd be a little bit more. I don't know what I expected it to be, but it just didn't really deliver on what I thought it would be. And I only watched like half an episode, maybe caught another one, like random switching channels, but it didn't keep me engaged at all. And I thought, well, no, this is a bit pap. So.
Yeah, I think it's kind of video games have passed TV by a little bit. I think a lot of it's like sort of, you know, maybe not so much these days, but sort of the baby boomers that were kind of in charge of TV in like the 2000s, especially, obviously wouldn't have any kind of affinity for video games, so they'll be very reluctant to commission any kind of TV show. But it's also the actual medium itself. It doesn't always lend it. Well, it's out now. You've got YouTubers that where you can just watch someone play a game. But for a mainstream TV, it doesn't lend itself to being an enjoyable thing to watch someone play. Unless it's that's why they kept using that bloody Terminator puzzle game in Games Master, because it kind of looked, you know, kind of good.
The Monkey Island one where you throw the axe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
those kind of in stocks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that which is like a really obscure part of the game. But I guess I wanted to get the game on TV because it was a popular game. But is there anything that looks? You can't just have someone, you know, go through the campaigns.
You can't watch someone you know, just clicking on mouse and stuff.
Yeah,
you'd have. I mean, what they've done before, haven't they, with TV shows, is that they've been a sort of magazine format.
Yes,
like you've got the news and the reviews and stuff. And to be honest, as I got older, even into my early teens, I wasn't really interested in watching people play video games on TV. I wanted to know about the news and stuff, and
that's right.
Stuff. So when Games Master moved away from watching someone play a video game, I was like, yes, this is great. That's why I loved Bad Influence. So
that was an entire show. Was that format, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't treat the kids as stupid either. You know, it was just very simple information they provided. And 8-bit thing is just kind of I suppose it's supposed to be a nostalgic trip to what Games Master used to be, I suppose, but I don't think that was Dara O'Brien's intention.
No.
But this, I mean, it's you can get better stuff on YouTube and far more informative stuff, but I don't think that would work for a general public. Well, maybe it will do, but the producers don't think it will, because, you know, someone could do like a half-an-hour retrospective on one video game on, like, you know, from the past, and it gets, I don't know, 100,000 views.
Basically, Kim Justice type documentary.
Well, yeah, like, you know, for example, Rise of the Robots she did. You know, that was one of my favourites, and you know, if you put that on TV, you know, a lot of people probably find it enjoyable. But I think that format of just one person talking about a video game probably wouldn't sell to a network or something like that. So that's why if it did ever happen, like Channel 4 did something like that, it would be on at what, Friday evening or like 12 o'clock at night. Yeah, the time when everyone's, you know, coming back from the pub with a kebab, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think my problem with it is, and I don't want to sound like snobby and turn my nose up to this particular kind of game, but there's often, you know, out of the sort of 6 people that are the contestants, there's maybe 2 that are actually into video games, and they invite whoever on.
That's the problem I encountered. I was like, why have they got these people who don't have a fucking clue about video games? If they're in their 30s, they should have a clue, because video games is not something that's niche. You know, everyone's played on a Mega Drive or SNES at their time, or a PlayStation, especially a PlayStation.
And they do tend to be our age. They do tend to be people that are in their 30s. So you would think it'd be a natural thing to talk about. But what they do is often they would get one of the they sort of do a weekly rotation of a particular guest or a couple of guests on each team, and they would then ask that guest, what game should we play? What's your favourite game? And the trouble is, if it's someone that's not into games, their only experience of games is some mobile phone game. We had Fruit Ninja on it.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, it's a game. I know it is. I'm not trying to be snobby about it, but it doesn't make for an enjoyable thing to watch.
No, it doesn't. Why don't they get someone, I don't know, like Adam Buxton or something? He'd probably have a good idea to play, like retro stuff, maybe.
Charlie Brooker,
Yeah, Charlie Brooker, yeah, so I don't think he may not do that, but this like even younger comedians who are maybe in their late 20s who'd probably go, oh, okay, let's play, I don't know, like Wipeout 2097.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do a lap of that, or F-Zero.
Yeah, it's kind of mixed. I think it's good that it's back on TV, but in saying that, I don't look for video games to be on TV these days. I'm covered by. I watch more YouTube now than in general, anyway.
Yeah. I find myself doing that generally because the BBC is getting a bit slack on their documentaries and stuff recently. I'm like, this is boring.
Yeah,
boring. And BBC Four is just like. I don't know. They just seem to be popping up. There's music documentaries which I've seen, so they're all repeats, and there's none on film either. So I'm like, oh,
exactly, yeah. And it's I mean, I have maybe a couple of TV shows that I actually watch now, like Walking Dead, I think, and the odd Netflixy one, like Stranger Things, but I don't watch Game of Thrones. I don't watch soaps or anything like that. I prefer to, watch YouTube because I can get it's niche stuff I can find that's exactly tailored to me, made by people like me, like yourself. So
that's why people are watching TV less and less, aren't they? Really, I mean, there's people are farther tuning in for specialised programs and not just the usual tat you see on TV, because people's demands and choices are getting so much more articulate in what they want, focused. So it must be difficult for TV stations to even attempt to sort of appeal to a wider audience. But Channel 4 just ends up being, during the course of the evening, just like property programs or how do you renovate this and such. Or you got other channels as soaps, and then it goes into casino and gambling stuff in the evening. I'm like, right, I'm done.
It'll be long before BBC's just another YouTube channel.
Can't beat everything will be online, won't it?
Yeah. Well, okay. So the actual focus of tonight's show, we've had a bit of a flurry of retro remake consoles. The most famous of which, there've been plenty before, and there'll be more after. Is the NES Classic Mini. We've just had the SNES Classic Mini announced. I'm sure there'll be. I don't think there'll be an N64 one. We'll talk about that later. Hopefully there'll be a Game Boy one. I think that's more likely. We've also had the new Mega Drive one, or Genesis if you're American, that has just come out. I think that's AtGames still. Genesis Flashback, I think it's called. So we're going to talk about those and what our thoughts on them are. The good points and the bad points. So to start off, did you have any of these before the sort of the era we're in of Nintendo sort of jumping on the bandwagon? Were you aware of them, or have you ever been tempted to get one?
I was aware of them. I remember HMV used to sell the Mega Drive packs, where you'd get I think you only get the machine and like one game built into it or something, or like two or something like that. I remember there's a Mortal Kombat, maybe a Streets of Rage kind of pack, but I don't remember or recall that if you could put any Mega Drive cartridge into it to make it to play other games. I was unsure, so I have not really kind of paid much attention to them, because I over here in the UK it was always just kind of cheap branded Mega Drive knockoffs that someone's obviously got the license to do that. So it wasn't something I jumped onto, and it was only really since the NES Mini that people really got up in arms and wanted to get it, and also due to the poor supply of them, kind of fueled that demand.
That's right, yeah.
And once that SNES Mini was announced, I think because I was talking to you about it, wasn't I? Like, well, you guys going to get this?
We went straight on it,
Yeah, and I did, and
Get one.
because I didn't get the NES one, I wasn't going to bother with that. Once they announced the SNES one, and I saw the list of games, I was like, I think I want this. So I sat there. Once they announced it that evening, I sat there on my laptop. I got it from Game, and I tried to add it to the cart, and it took forever. So I knew everyone else was doing the same thing. So the whole website was going to crash soon due to the traffic, and it did crash.
That's exactly what happened, yeah.
And it kept doing that all evening. So I went back. I put my laptop away. Then went back to it around 11 o'clock in the evening, and it was fine. And I completed the transaction and got it. And then the next day it was all panic because everyone was like, oh my God, I can't get one. So I was pretty lucky, man. I was very lucky.
Yeah, it was only because my girlfriend pointed out that, look, they're available on Amazon now. I was like, shit! So I had to quickly jump on and basically grab one.
Yeah.
Were you particularly nostalgic for the SNES generally? And that
I had a SNES for a couple of years, but it's just the games they had on, that had listed things like F-Zero, Castlevania 4, Super Mario World, obviously, and I think there's obviously a bunch of others on there, like Metroid. I want to play Metroid again because I love that.
Yeah,
and so yeah, that was, and it was obviously 2 controllers and stuff, and it's retro. And I know that you can play these games perfectly via emulation. I can run them perfectly on my Apple Mac, and they'll look great. But it was just kind of the novelty of having it and just plug it in, and my girlfriend can play it, and just she can play some simple retro games. And my older sister, she loved Super Mario World, so I can just take it around hers, whatever, and she can play that. So.
Yeah, it's funny because where I work, we have like drinks on a Friday. They sort of open up our basement, and we all go down. It was actually upstairs because it's the nice weather. We have a terrace as well. And we just have drinks on a Friday at sort of after we all finish. And a chap who the various departments run the bar that we have, and it rotates. And it was one particular department this last Friday even. And the chap that was running it, he actually set up a NES Mini, and it was up on a screen, and people were just rocking over to it and playing it. So I thought I'll go and chat to the dude because he's probably into retro gaming. And it's funny because he isn't. He is and he isn't. It was like I was kind of expecting to go into a big chat about, what have you got a collection? Do you watch these YouTubers? Do you? And like,
you went too far, didn't you? These people on YouTube. He's like, who the fuck are you talking about?
In that exact voice, probably slightly more like, "Hi, do you like Game Chasers?"
Partridge, didn't you?
Yeah, that was it. He was just like, "No, I just saw it, on Amazon. I just bought it. Looked cool." I had an NES when I was a kid. I was like, "Oh, do you play games like now?" Not really. It's just like that's it. But that is probably the majority of that is the market that they're aiming for. That would never buy a Wii U or probably not a Switch, but they're still going to make some money out of the nostalgia trip.
Of course.
And it's funny because I asked him also, was it just you that plays it? And it's like, "I know I've got a couple of kids," and I was like, "Oh, do they play?" We always get the impression that NES games are too hard for kids, and it was like, yeah, they don't like it because of that. Because it was even like a couple of mates that I work with. I was like, "Oh, so we go on Contra, which is a game I really like, so I kind of can play it and not get frustrated with it." And the other guy in the Two Black Ops died really quickly, and then sort of hated it. So it's just like, it's hard, it's a hard game. But
they were hard games, but also it's like as you were saying, they should produce enough to appeal to the general public and not just the hardcore collectors who probably won't play it that much and just keep it boxed and go, "I've got a mint condition one. It's going to stay on my wall forever and collect dust, and I'll never use it." And
he's going to get it in that god awful graders, slabbing them as it's called. Popping in those big plastic shells with a.
Oh yeah. I see my mate. I've seen people like bless my friend, my friend David. He's a big collector, and he'll just do random pickup videos where he's got, "I've got these empty clamshell cases." I'm like, dude, people don't need to see this shit. It's just empty case. It's a plastic case.
We're gonna do a 1 hour review on a plastic case.
Slim pickings on pickups this week, isn't it, mate? Why bother?
And review the CEX's new bag pop policy. I didn't pick anything up. It's this weird company called UK Graders. They're not like It's not like the comics grade guys in America. They're legit because Marvel and DC, they consult with them to come up with what a grading system. And the grade is depending on if it's completely like crisp and firm and hasn't got like markings down the spine. That will give you like an amazing like 9.7 out of 10. If it's a bit wrinkly and maybe a rip here and there, it'll be a 7. So that is legit. But there's now kind of been 3 or 4 sort of grading, quote unquote, companies for video games. But this isn't because like they've gone around to Sega and Nintendo and sort of said, "Hey guys, you want to grade your old games?" Nintendo Sega won't give a shit about their old games apart from what they make on bloody Virtual Console. So they just decided themselves, yeah, okay. If it's got a rip, I think it's like 8. But people bloody send them their shit and get them graded and pay them 50 quid.
What?
And flog them on. Yeah, something like that.
I'll do it. Half the price. There you go.
Yeah, that's a 4. What grading system, Johnny? Well, just 9. And it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's just like that seems like a waste of money.
Yeah,
and you don't need someone else to tell you what the grade of your thing is. If it looks in good condition, it's mint. Take a photo of it, and if whoever you're selling it to is happy with it, then you can charge them whatever you've agreed to.
But if this is just some guys who've cobbled together and started a company to put games in a plastic box, if there's no official, sort of authority that they answer to that helps them grade stuff, they're just, it's like mid-90s video game magazines. Yeah, that's 91%. That's 87. It's like, what's the
they've come up with, if it's working, then well done for them creating this kind of mad business idea. But it's like a bunch of cowboys to me. But
yeah, it is quite honestly. But yeah, people do it and they make the money. But anyway, obviously you got all the scalpers, but it was just bizarre how Nintendo sort of just arbitrarily decided to we're not making it anymore, and they were like because we have new products coming out, and it's like, so
I just don't get it, man. Well, I think the price of the NES Mini, I think the demand has dropped quite a bit because there are more of them now floating around, and there's always one in CEX going on sale, so it's not something it's not impossible to find. You can get it. It's not like it's not like trying to find a copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga or something. But it's with the SNES Mini, they apparently are producing more. But it seems to me that there isn't enough to keep up with demand. And now, wasn't it that Walmart has cancelled everyone's pre-orders? So so I presume everyone who lost out has got to pre-order it again. Is that right?
I guess. I've seen the articles, but I don't really know why they did it. Was it because they haven't got enough?
They haven't got enough. They basically pre-sold it without the stock.
I mean, we're screwed then with our little order we've got going.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the game. I think Game would have said already. Well, I got it from Game, yeah. So they would have said by now if anything had gone wrong. But yeah, so before we started recording, you were mentioning the new Sega Genesis.
Oh god, the flashback, Mega Drive flashback, yeah.
Because I saw a video, because you'd mentioned you had a few words to say on that, and I saw a video of it actually this morning because I didn't know what everyone was going on about, because I saw a few people had mentioned it, and I saw it kind of popping up on my feed on Facebook, and I was like, "Whoa, this is quite interesting." And
that's what they prey on, Ollie. That's what they prey on.
I know.
Mega Drive, wicked. I remember that
because it had 85 games built into it, right?
Yeah,
and you can plug in.
It looks good. Outwardly, it looks good. It looks like the perfect recreation, visually.
It's a little bit smaller, isn't it? And you can plug in your existing Mega Drive games into it, but some of them don't work, like Super Street Fighter 2, I think, because it's a larger meg.
Yeah, that's
cartridge.
right. Yeah, it can't.
Probably things like Virtual Racing probably wouldn't work either.
No.
But the games they had on it, they were like some like bootleg ones or something, or like custom games they called it, or additional or like extra games or something like that. But the ones
Brazil,
the official ones on there were just like the same stuff you see get recycled on every Sega collection pack. If this Mega Drive had something like Road Rash 2 Jungle Strike, other third-party titles, then I'll be like, I want to play this. I want to own this. I don't want another Mega Drive that you can just got built-in Streets of Rage 1 to 3, Phantasy Star, whatever it is on, Sonic games. I'm like, I want more of the third-party stuff. I love Sega, but I want to play.
Missing a lot, yeah.
Road
I mean, it's got like Mortal Kombat, I think.
Yeah, that's a third-party title, so that's fair enough. There should be Alien 3 on there. It should be Robocop vs Terminator. Get
Castlevania, Probotector, Terminator, which is
just something different for once, not just the same stuff you see.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were the first, the Mega Drive ones, and it's a company called AtGames. They were the ones that first kind of did a sort of real mainstream, widespread one. But the emulation is the biggest issue. And they have these fucking terrible one-chip Mega Drive things that have been doing the rounds now for a while, and they just recycle them over and over again. The only one I would nearly, I mean, in Argos, they're always trying to flog these AtGames Mega Drive. The handheld ones are kind of cool. But what does it for me is the emulation. I mean, the sound is horrendous. I mean,
was it on this new one? It's the same hardware.
Yeah, it's the same. So, I mean, the obvious one that will break your heart and your ears is Sonic the Hedgehog. If you play that, the sound is so badly emulated, it just makes it awful to play. And it just completely puts you off. I mean, other games that might not bother you so much, but the music is equally as iconic as the actual game.
Well, yeah, the Mega Drive sound was very unique. That's what I loved about it. It's really kind of deep, bassy synth sounds. I loved all that. I love the sound chip of the Mega Drive.
I mean, sorry, God, yeah.
And it also, didn't replicate things like speech that well compared to like Super Nintendo. But if you, I love that kind of raw synth sound. It's that kind of 80s pop synthesizers had, and that's what Mega Drive was. I think the Mega Drive had a similar kind of sound chip. So, yeah, I loved all that. So if it's not emulating the sound properly, then it's not worth buying it.
No, there are glitches and there are errors. I mean, the various ones often you had a cartridge slot like this one we've just been talking about. You can pop your games in there, your real games, but some of them don't work, and you still get the crap sound and all that. So you're better off basically. I mean, the Mega Drive is probably the most common retro console in the UK, I would say. But pre 32-bit, so you could put obviously the PlayStation and all that. But when we're talking 2D based consoles, the Mega Drive is probably the most common one. CEX, you can just now, because they do retro stuff, or Stuart Shop, which has loads of them, of course. 40 quid for a one in good nick, not even that, 30 quid if you just happen to get the loose.
Well, yeah, I think, okay. If you think about it, right? If someone wants to get into Mega Drive stuff or something that's similar to the SNES Mini, right? Is there an option for someone to do that with a Mega Drive? Have like a decent, like an HDMI to the TV and emulate the system properly? So at the moment, there isn't a machine like that, is there?
No, I mean, if it wasn't an original Mega Drive, I mean, so my setup, I mean, I've mentioned it before, but because it's kind of is appropriate, for what we're talking about. I use the real consoles, but I use an EverDrive. So I have, for those that don't know, an EverDrive is a cartridge, a flash cartridge. You pop SD card in it with all the ROMs, pretty much every ROM for that console, and you can run the ROMs. Well, you normally run on an emulator on the real hardware, and now it's even better because for my NES and my Super Nintendo, I've got the new 8-bit DOE wireless controllers, which are kind of near perfect recreations of the originals, but they're Bluetooth. So you've kind of got a lot of that functionality that you have in these. Are
you running your Mega Drive through a CRT though? Are you?
It's actually no. It's hooked up to a HD TV, but I've got the Mega Drive has very good RGB out.
Yeah.
As does the Super Nintendo, so you can actually get away with popping that into an upscaler, and then the HD upscaler obviously the HDMI. So that's what I use. And it looks good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the only one that's a bit shit is the NES because it hasn't got RGB and it isn't.
So that's the thing. If Sega officially did something or endorsed a company to produce something that would be legitimate in terms of representing the sound and picture for the Mega Drive through an HDMI, straight into your TV.
Yeah.
And it had built-in, it doesn't matter if it's like 85, it could be 30 games or less. But if every game was amazing, like the best Mega Drive games, because every person with a Mega Drive didn't all just have Sega games.
No,
Wide collection of like third-party stuff.
one of its strengths, I think, wasn't it? Was the
Definitely. I mean, I was saying, I mentioned earlier, some of the EA's games were superb. So just have a selection of them. That would encourage me to buy it. If it was like 60 or 80 quid, whatever, so it come with 2 pads, I'm happy. But yeah, so
that would sell better here, possibly.
That would definitely, because that would. I mean, that was for many lads at our age. A Mega Drive was the thing.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. Anyone listening, I wouldn't bother with those new Sega kind of cheap knockoff third-party ones because they're not very good.
They're basically shit. You're better off, and also, from my point of view, there's some Mega CD games that I really like, and even there's a couple of 32X games, and obviously none of that is compatible.
No.
If you want the ultimate Mega Drive, you have to get a multi-Mega, but they're about 300 quid, so maybe not. But you can get like a Mega CD and a Mega CD.
Yeah, I mean, they could easily have the Mega Drive thing like that, and it would be called a Mega Drive / Mega CD all in one, and you could have the ROM on there or the whatever it is, the ISO for a Snatcher or Final Fight, or for the Mega CD. And
Terminator was a great Mega CD game.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Night Trap, of course. Maybe not that one.
Night Trap, yeah.
Violent for that.
There's loads of opportunities there to make a really cool thing, but it's just not happening.
No, and it's I mean, there've been other attempts as well. I mean, I think there was the Atari flashbacks, but I think I didn't grow up with an Atari 2600. I'd be curious to go back and try one, but it was a bit before my time, so I don't have any real nostalgia for it. What I would like, because it would seem that I don't think the 2 Nintendo ones are going to be the only ones. I'm not sure there'll be an N64 one.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, because everyone's going to think 64 one, it's going to have GoldenEye. It won't have GoldenEye. You'll never have GoldenEye. No. And that's the one thing I would want it to have to make me buy it. But
basically most of the Rare back catalogue you won't be able to have either. I mean, Banjo-Kazooie, that's Microsoft now. Anything Conker related?
Yeah, it would just be Nintendo stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's only a few of those games I would want to own.
Not great third-party wise. There was not really a good Castlevania. It was like clunky sort of 3D versions of SNES games that didn't work very well. You could end up with about 12 good games.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think they will do it. I don't think they even do it. They will do a Game Boy one either. I don't think they will.
I want them to, because I think that would work. But I think you'd have to make some kind of funky-looking mini Game Boy.
I think people probably get a bit confused, think it's another sort of portable DS thing. I don't know. Yeah, it'd have to be like
feels like 30 quid. If there was a little dinky little thing, obviously the screen and the controls have to be big enough. A little dinky thing that you could, little kids could have it, and you get all the old Mario games. Maybe it would be all the way up to the advance. It would probably be able to do, and you get about 50 odd games. I think that'd be a nice little trinket thing that parents might not want to spend 200 quid on a Switch if they can even get one.
It wouldn't be called a Game Boy Mini. It'd be too small, wouldn't it?
Game every.
It's difficult to know. I think this may be what I would think. This would be the last thing they're doing as a mini product from Nintendo. But maybe you could, proven wrong in the next 6 to 8 months. But I would definitely want to see a Mega Drive thing that's done right.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. I don't know if it's harder to emulate than a Super Nintendo.
No, of course not. It's just like Sega aren't bothered. Take up particularly.
Yeah.
Or aren't going to have we had the money to invest in such a product? Maybe, I don't know. There isn't. They're letting other people do it.
Well, they don't make hardware anymore, so I guess they've got no real expertise in that now. All the sort of people in the glory days that would have, built things like the Mega Drive and even up to the Dreamcast, I think they would have left a long time ago.
Yeah, they just have to find a company that they could trust to produce something that was good. But I mean, we had those issues with the Neo Geo X.
The X, yeah.
I was going to buy at one point, but I think most reviews will come like, it's not very good. And it was going, when they were trying to liquidate a lot of the remaining stock for like £100 or less. And I was like, I could have bought one then, but now they've all sold out. People are now selling it for £250.
Which is weird, isn't it? Because
it's not a very good product, and
it looks great. It looked great. I mean, the actual
cool, but it's just crappy emulation, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was like didn't allow to play games in like 4x3, which is like you
had to do like upgrade the firmware, but only by what I remember was buying one of those game packs they did, which they charged. Came with the update, so it gave you the option to whatever switch and stuff.
Got like 6 games or something, wasn't it?
That's right. So great if SNK did something like that again, license it to a company that they could trust and weren't going to do a shoddy emulation, and because they also did a cease and desist thing, but apparently in the contract they couldn't do that. They couldn't suddenly change their minds, whatever. But
they sort of tried to yank it, didn't they, from shops?
Because they weren't happy with
they
weren't happy with the product. But it's
QAing this shit, Someone just have to play it for a few minutes, sort of like, this is crap. Can we take it back?
It seems like they just kind of took the money and ran, but then realised that wasn't a particularly good thing. But I would like to see another Neo Geo thing, maybe. But I mean, I've got that Pandora's Box thing, so I don't.
Awesome. I mean, that's not just arcade games, was it?
That's all arcades, mate. It was all just like it wasn't anything like too taxing. Like you couldn't play. Well, it didn't have like Virtua Fighter or Daytona. It's just like 8-bit to 16-bit. It's like the sort of CPS1. CPS2 you can get to. No, CPS3 like Street Fighter 3.
Kind of arcade board. Cool.
Yeah, Street Fighter 3's on there, and one other one's kind of like you get some of the later Neo Geo releases, but all the Neo Geo games are practically on it. So even if that Neo Geo thing did come out per se, this kind of new mini thing, I'd probably, out of the fact that I already own most of those games.
Yeah. I mean, does it get a lot of play then? Or?
Well, I played it about a month ago. It's now sitting under my table as we speak. Yeah. I haven't had time to play it. One of my friends, as soon as my friend saw it, that I had this thing, and he goes, "Ollie, sell it to me once you get bored of it." I was like, "Okay." So I won't lose any money on it
tomorrow, then I guess. Or
well, I've got some taxes to pay, then maybe.
That's kind of a cool little, like a kind of party thing. If you've got people around or something, they'll see that and they'll be like,
definitely.
Let's have a go on, something like Turtles in Time, for example, or the first Turtles game, or, the Simpsons game, arcade game. That's perfect for that kind of, people just to casually jump in and sort of, play a game. I think they're great. That sort of thing is great for that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's best thing for play. As long as you have someone play it who's not a complete maniac and just bashes and wiggles the joystick like crazy, like a maniac.
Yeah.
One of my friends had a go and they're like just bashing it around, like, dude, what you doing? It's sensitive. Be careful with it.
It's got the big old chunky kind of arcade stick, isn't it? And the big buttons and stuff.
That's right.
It would feel like, I imagine it feels. Is it HDMI? It is HDMI.
It is HDMI, but it's one of those things where it does that kind of smoothing effect on some of the games.
Yeah.
So some are better than others. Like The Simpsons, unfortunately, has that smoothing thing. It won't disappear. You can't seem to switch it off. But some of the other ones, like Street Fighter and the Neo Geo stuff, works fine. It looks like proper, like
chunky,
pixel perfect. It looks superb. But yeah, so it's just some games don't look as good as they should do. So that's the gamble. You got to take.
I absolutely hate those filters.
Filters and scan lines can fuck off.
I like pure clean.
Yeah, like a pure clean kind of picture.
I mean, everyone's just on
not smooth,
great, but
that's the American thing. The Americans love it. The Americans love all that scan line nonsense. I don't know why.
Scan lines all over the shop, isn't there? But the idea is, we've got better TVs now that can kind of bring out the graphics that were kind of hidden behind noise and analog shit. So I want to kind of embrace that and be like, because I like a Mega Drive game and like, a SNES game and even the 8-bit games. There's stuff that you didn't see before that you can now see, like the subtlety in, color and the pixel art. Basically, you can actually appreciate what those poor buggers that had to draw this stuff on a really, very, very limited pixel array.
Yeah.
You can see it now, and I don't want to sort of,
Well, yeah, 'cause it was
Vaseline.
done, they're working off a monitor, so it looks nice. It wasn't like scanline kind of a deal like a CRT most of the time. But they would obviously, once it's checked and outputted to a CRT, they can say, okay, does it replicate what it actually looks like on a monitor? So it will have the scan lines at the end of the day, but it's not a desired choice for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, they would literally design the characters on sort of graph paper, which is, which would be simulate the pixel array of whatever the internal resolution of the console was that they were going to make it for. So, you're now able to sort of see that original quality they were going for on a nice, clean, especially if you can mod your console to get HDMI. Although RGB is pretty darn good anyway, if you can get it. Like I said, the NES is a bit of a pain with that. In France, they got a SCART lead with their NES, which is weird, but it only pumps the composite video signal through it. Yeah, which sucks. But even then, I kind of like the noisy image. It's kind of it brings back the nostalgia and all that stuff. And you turn your sort of make sure your HDTV is on game mode, so it's not like processing the crap out of the image, and you're getting something that's about 8 seconds after the what you actually the NES is sending to the TV. You can basically get it way better than you would ever have got it on a CRT, and you can bring out the graphics. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping this is never going to happen, but I would love to see some kind of straightforward Amiga kind of classic mini. But the game, that sort of platform does not lend itself to a quick little pop in. Sit back,
I mean, you could just get one of those. Is it Ouya sort of?
Yes, yeah.
And just can you put an emulator on that, and it should be okay? Maybe.
Ouya, yeah.
That's a good thing for emulation. That's what people.
Yeah. It's a sneaky little thing, isn't it? You can pop in the telly and. Is it still up? I don't know. Is it updated anymore? Have they given up?
I really don't know. I mean, Larry Bundy, was telling me to sort of get one at one point because they were, obviously they're cheap and you just put everything on there and it's got USB input, so you can just put like a, get yourself a Sega Saturn or Mega Drive kind of USB pad and just plug it in and away you go.
They could do everything up to kind of maybe Dreamcast.
You can do Dreamcast, yeah. So maybe you can do like Sega Saturn. If you do Sega Saturn, amazing, So or N60. If you can do N64, get like a USB N64 pad, plug it in, and you can do GoldenEye, and it'll look better.
Because
the N64 video output was dog shit. So
and I guess also it's something you can just kind of almost nearly pop in your pocket and take it around to mates and hook up those wireless controllers and you got yourself a fun little NES mini. In fact, I'm looking right now, if you wanted to grab one, you can get a discounted one, as they call it, from CEX for 25 quid.
One Ouya?
An Ouya, yes. With a controller as well. So yeah, that's pretty good, I think, for that says they haven't got any. But yeah, that's how much it normally is. There was selling them in game at one point for about 100 quid or something.
Yeah, that's when even when it came out, they were selling them in game. If I can find out if I can emulate the stuff on there quite easily, then I'll probably get one actually for that price. That's a pretty good deal.
But you've also got the Raspberry Pi, haven't you? And you can kind of people pre-build them, don't they? Now you can grab one off eBay. Not this insanely hard to sort of set it up with RetroPie. I think the best, a great emulation thing, and you can, I think you should try and have a go on this. Actually, is RetroArch. It's friggin' amazing. It's literally it works on Macs and PCs, and it basically you install it. You point RetroArch to where your ROMs live for whatever console it works with. Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, Master System, 32-bit, basically all the popular ones. Point it to where your ROMs are, and when you load it up, you can even get your PC to kind of boot into it. And it also works like Linux and various other operating systems, so tons of devices can use it. And it'll pick up your Xbox 360 controller. You can use that on it. And it kind of takes you into like a PS3 type cross-media bar thing.
Okay.
But each of the segments are the console, and you sort of flip over to that console you want to jump into, and it's got all of the emulators. The cores of the emulators live inside RetroArch, So you jump to the console, fire up the game from your list that you've pointed it to. It generates a list. You can download the artwork to make it all nice, and it will just jump straight in.
That's very similar, actually. I use OpenMU for my Mac. So yeah, that's basically the same thing.
I never used it actually.
I think it's only designed for the Mac. So you got a Mac, then it should be fine. But they have like an official one. Then they've got like what was it, like a beta version where you can have Sega Saturn and arcade stuff, and it works fine because that's how I emulate my Saturn games. It works really well. So, and it accepts like my 360 like Street Fighter joypads, which are basically like the 6-button things. So it recognizes them.
The Saturn type ones, yeah.
You know, I've got an Xbox 360 regular joypad, wired ones. It works perfectly fine. So yeah, that's really good. I mean, it's just the downside is trying to find, if you go beyond the Mega Drive and SNES, you know,
it gets a bit unfriendly.
Unfriendly because you have to find like some websites will have the game. Oh, it's there, download it, and it will be missing some of the files. So you've got to find another file, open them up, drag all the files into one folder, zip it up again, and then bung it in. So that's the problematic stuff. So I can't find the ISO for like Quake on the Saturn. I just can't find it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've tried 3 different websites, popular websites, and it just doesn't work.
You don't have it anymore then as a
actual... I don't know.
Rip it.
I got Duke Nukem to work, and Deep Fear, and what's some other big ones, like Space Hulk and stuff. Got quite a few games to make to work, but some games just don't function.
Yeah, it's the same with PlayStation. I mean, there's also the fact that there's so many different formats of ISOs. There's ones that are like, you know, people have turned all the audio into sort of FLAC or OGG tracks, which an emulator won't like. So you might get the game, but you won't get any of the music, which is for, you know, that's like Wipeout.
Yeah, I find that once you kind of or whatever, or you know, expand it, you know, if it's got like, if it's like a PlayStation or beyond, if it has like audio tracks, it should be like the game itself and then all the audio tracks. If all those audio tracks aren't visible, then I find they don't work.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and sometimes they have to be labeled in a particular way. They need like a table of contents file sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's not very many that are just an ISO. There's literally just a completely plain ISO that is basically the disc. There's not actually, you know, many places where you can download something in that format. You'd have to rip your own games. And to be honest, when it comes to like the PlayStation, particularly, like I either use my PS2 or I've actually got I've got an old titanium PowerBook G4, which runs the sort of the classic Mac OS 9, and there was a really good PlayStation emulator called Kinetics Virtual Game Station. There's a famous story about Sony sued these guys because this came out in like 1998. This emulator.
Oh, really?
For the PS1, yeah. So that console was still live and kicking, and you know, actively supported. And these guys, you know, knocked out an emulator for it for the Mac.
Jeez.
And you pop a disc in, and they pretty much every game I've thrown, it works perfectly.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to find like a Atari Jaguar emulator, and the last one they did for the Mac was designed for the old OS 9,
yeah,
you know, operating system, and they haven't updated it since then. So it's called Virtual Jaguar, sorry. And I just wanted to play Alien vs Predator, and I can't. I'm really annoyed because I don't want to go out and buy a Jaguar because they're really expensive now. They've gone up in price. It's annoying. So so I'm just waiting, fingers crossed, someone one day will go, oh, I'll update that, and then they'll do it and I can play it. But
that's odd. That's really odd. I mean, OS 9 was far more. It was in a point in Apple's history when Apple computers or Macs generally are far more niche than they are now. When you go into any bloody Starbucks and there's about 10 hipsters with them,
It's just,
you wouldn't have that in 2001.
No. I mean, I'm surprised it was developed for the Mac at that point. So
yeah, especially in the UK. I mean, the Macs were very obscure in the UK, pretty much until the mid 2000s. Really, America, it was. You see all these countless. Again, the YouTubers who talked about Americans love going about the NES. We had the BBC Micro, and we had things like Granny's Garden and all that stuff. In America, they talk about the Apple II and Oregon Trail. That was their school game that they all played. Obviously, we don't know what the hell that was. The Apple II was like $4,000 or something in the 80s. when the
Well,
bees.
yeah, I grew up with Apple Macs. So my dad had a Macintosh in '89 or '88, big
Yeah.
giant tower because he's an architect. So that had both
yeah.
Vectorworks kind of software to do your plans on. So
Windows would have been miles behind the Mac in
I mean, of
those
course,
days. Yeah.
Macs have since well, still are used really as a function for editing, graphic design, and things like that. And so it was a specialist market. Now the prices have kind of dropped and it's become more more popular. But when we were having those G4 Apple Macs, they were running off Power PC kind of like hardware, which was just crap compared to the Pentium or the Intel stuff. So
it started off good, and then when IBM and the guys that made the Power PC started, trying to build like consoles, like the one in the Power PC and the 360 and the GameCube, they sort of thought, Apple, I'm sorry, mate, but you don't really, we don't order enough chips from us to worry about you, so. Here's this sort of offshoot of the other stuff we're making that's not as good. It started off a lot better than Intel. They used to do adverts on in America. This advert of like comparing the Pentium 2 to the G3, and like the Pentium 2 would be on like the back of a snail going across the trail, and then like the G3 would be like zoom past it on like a rabbit. And
it's always like to me because like when you
switched around though,
Power PC stuff, it just couldn't match. At the time, well, I remember that the Intel stuff, and I was like, "Well, why is Apple still sticking with this? I don't know why."
In the end, it completely turned around, and Intel was just destroying Power PC.
Yeah, and that's why everything kind of works a lot better now because now it's basically, even though it's a different OS, it's still the same hardware.
Yeah, that's right. It was a bit painful though because you got to sort of like the late '90s and early 2000s where they're running kind of two. Operating systems at the same time, like OS 9 stuff and OS 10. You have to you'd buy a Mac in like 2000 and 2001, and the hard drive would be chopped in two. You had to choose whether you wanted to go in OS 9 and OS 10. And Photoshop, they didn't make a Photoshop for OS 10 for about 3 years, and so you'd have to sort of dive back into the old sort of slightly clunky OS 9 to just a bit of bloody edit a photo. And it was about 2002 or something before you got a decent one. But that's still the same. Mac OS 10 is the same one that bloody pushing 20 years old now, which is insane when you think about it.
That's right. Yeah. Now it's up to Sierra now, isn't it? That's the latest one.
Yeah, that is. Isn't it? Yeah. But it's kind of different though now, isn't it? OSs don't really make these big leaps every 5 years. It's kind of just incremental sort of 1 gig downloads every few months, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it's a safe. It's just like update security stuff. That's about it. And you may get a slight change in some sort of graphics, but it's all
they
generally the same thing. But no, I suppose the next big leap will be another year or two until we see Mac OS change again.
Yeah, and it would just be like we slightly rounded the corners of every window or something.
Yeah.
At least it's free though. I remember back in the day, you'd have to
pay. Yeah, it's free. I'm happy about that. I'm not going to complain.
I was getting quite excited about. Go and get Windows 98, and it's gonna be awesome. And it was like 150 quid with a whacking great big manual, and I remember I had a mate who it was like when Windows 95 came out. We literally arranged to go and install it together. We were that excited. He got the box and I haven't opened
ridiculous effort to do.
Yeah, I went around his house and I haven't opened it yet. I've got it in the mail, but let's open it together. And it was like really, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be freaking amazing. And then we opened it.
It's an OS. It's not like a video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just the most nerdiest thing ever. And he bought the floppy disk version, which came with about 20.
Oh god!
Windows 95, yeah. So you had to like you're swapping them out to buggery, and but you got it installed, and just looked at the desktop for a bit, and we're like, whoa, and like the start button kicked in, Windows 95, that was like, but obviously that was a point where you went from computers are basically DOS based, weren't they? And Windows kind of ran behind that, and you had to sort of jump into Windows. It was really DOS that was the daddy kind of thing. So to go from that to Windows 95, where they kind of basically eliminated DOS, and
it just went to like sort of having a screen like essentially like an Apple Mac,
Basically, yeah.
It was what I was used to for like I don't know, since 1980.
Weed on it, yeah.
So I had to do classes because in England, didn't they? They kind of really cut down on computer science in schools, and when it came to
Yeah,
computer education, it was just like, this is how you use Windows 95. That was a
Office,
class.
yeah.
That was a fucking class. And that was just ridiculous. How is how to open Word and how to use it. So really, it went from the 80s of teaching kids how to program. Now it's how to use the operating system. That is it.
I kind of feel we're sort of like part of a. We're born about 2 years too late to pick up the great, learning to program and the BBC Micro's heyday and and then these people would go and found the companies that are now the big guns, and then maybe 10 years too early, or maybe 15 years before they've kind of kicked that back in again with the Raspberry Pi.
Now kids are getting educated on programming, which is wonderful. But it's like our generation, we're kind of just like, well, you don't need that anymore, do you?
Yeah, exactly. The people that set up the people are out there that will make the stuff. You don't need to make it anymore. Just here's how to make a PowerPoint. And it's like, oh,
that is it.
Thanks a pantload, chat. Yeah. It's like, we're kind of a bit of a lost generation, unfortunately. But hopefully, that's kind of the people after us are going to be able to get back on the programming. But there wasn't a Raspberry Pi, was there? There wasn't. The computers are still very expensive.
Oh yeah. I remember at primary school we had to save up vouchers to get an Acorn Archimedes from Tesco's.
Yeah, we had an Archimedes, as well.
One computer per classroom. That was it. And it was no one used it apart from like a few of the lads who play that sort of weird. What was that? That kind of rudimentary kind of 3D kind of
Zarch.
That's it. Yeah.
That was a great game.
That was brilliant. It was like a demo, just basically a demo, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't really. It was like 3 levels or something. It was like
it was a bit of that. That was it.
David Braben made that game, as in Elite and now Elite Dangerous. He made that game, but it was the Archimedes was very advanced. The polygon performance that it could do kind of blew away like the Amiga and Atari ST and all the other sort of stuff that was around. But it was only really very few games. It didn't have a joystick port, so you couldn't.
If you go on the I think it's a Cambridge Computer Museum a YouTube channel, they've got some great videos about the Archimedes and stuff, and people who programmed for it. So I watched a few of those a couple of months ago, and
I really want one now.
Another ginormous thing to take up space.
Bloody huge, isn't they? Yeah, they're bigger than the Fire. They're sort of the same, that classic wedge form factor that the Amiga 500 kind of is most famous.
Yeah, that's right.
It was kind of that. It was basically the sequel to the BBC Micro, wasn't it? I think the Archimedes.
That's right. Yeah. And there were quite a lot of them in Cambridge because they were based in Cambridge. So
there was Acorn, wasn't it? Yeah, again, who put it together, and obviously that's become like the ARM chip now, which is like basically the standard phone kind of thing.
Yeah,
I need to check out. Have you been there? It was like it's on your doorstep, isn't it? So.
Well, I know where the old Acorn offices are in Cambridge, where they used to be.
Oh, cool. I'll take it there.
My friend Richard lived around the corner from Acorn, and in their car park they had basketball.
Oh wow!
As well, like you can just literally park your car and go play a bit of basketball if you wanted to. So they just basically on the weekend sneak in there and play basketball. But yeah, my girlfriend's sister works for ARM. She works in HR, but yeah, they're it's a huge company full of amazing programmers who never take any time off because they love programming. So it's
they go hard, don't they? On that?
So I think they got bought out by a Japanese company, but they're kind of the company's been kind of kept the same.
The legacy is
not changing anything really, but it's Cambridge based. Yeah.
If you want one, you want to get the A3010, which was sort of like a home version that Acorn brought out.
Okay.
It's still an Archimedes, but it's actually got a joystick port for starters. So that's the one to get.
Joystick port.
Yeah, has a joystick port.
That's £100.
It got a few Amiga games, like ports of Amiga games. You had like Sensible Soccer and Flashback and Gods and Speedball, I think, came out on it. And it was sort of A12,000 kind of level. So because it was quite graphically, a bit quite good power in terms of graphics. But yeah, I don't remember anybody ever having one in their home. I think I had a mate I had a mate who had an Acorn Archimedes at home, but his dad was the head teacher of the school that I went to. So he probably just was like issued it or something, as opposed to
just pinched it one day when they replaced it or something with something else.
Yeah, like you wouldn't sort of, if you're going to get a computer of that type, it'd be an Amiga, wouldn't it, in those days? Because that's kind of, the prevalent one. But yeah, right. I think we've probably gone just over an hour, and we're probably boring people to death with our. I was expecting an Archimedes chat. You got a bonus Archimedes chat there, guys. Not something you'll see.
It's our going off in tangent discussions.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? So
floppers.
Just rename that. Well, thanks again for coming on, Ollie. We really, really appreciate it when you do. Looks like Stu couldn't join us in the end. Obviously, he was pumping iron a bit too much and probably on, I don't know, a bit.
No, he let us down. I hope he pulled his back out. There you go. That saves
damn
us.
right. He always complains about that when he's on. So yeah, he'll be back next time round. And yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Ollie, again, and we'll see you in the next one.
Excellent. Take care.
See ya. Bye.